By 1937, Amelia Earhart was the most famous aviator in the world, a trailblazer whose record-breaking flights had shattered gender barriers and captured the imagination of millions. Her ambition to become the first woman to fly around the globe, however, led to her final, fateful journey in the summer of 1937, a haunting mystery of courage, miscalculation, and disappearance that remains one of aviation's greatest enigmas. Amelia Earhart was born in 1897 in Atchison, Kansas, a tomboy who climbed trees, hunted rats with a .22 rifle, and dreamed of adventure while society urged her to stay grounded. By her 30s, she had become a global icon, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic in 1932, a feat that earned her fame, book deals, and a megaphone to inspire women everywhere. Her restless spirit craved challenges, and in 1936 she set her sights on the ultimate prize, a 29,000-mile flight around the world, hugging the equator, a route no one had dared attempt. She chose a Lockheed Electra 10E, a sleek twin-engine plane, and enlisted Fred Noonan, a 44-year-old navigator whose expertise in charting Pacific routes was unmatched. Together, they were a formidable team, but the journey they embarked on would test the limits of human endurance and 1930s technology. The flight began on June 1, 1937, from Miami, Florida, with Earhart and Noonan hopping across continents in a whirlwind of takeoffs and landings. They crossed the Caribbean to South America, flew over the Atlantic to Africa, and navigated the deserts of the Middle East and the monsoons of Asia. By early July, they had logged over 22,000 miles, landing in Lae, New Guinea on July 2nd. The journey had been grueling. Sandstorms blinded them in Sudan, engine troubles delayed them in India, and dysentery plagued Noonan. But Earhart's determination and Noonan's calculations kept them aloft. Now, in Lae, they faced the most perilous leg, a 2,556-mile flight across the Pacific to Howland Island, a tiny coral atoll barely a mile long and half a mile wide, surrounded by an endless sea. Howland was a speck in the Pacific, a needle in a haystack of waves. The U.S. government had built a crude airstrip there just for Earhart's flight, and the Coast Guard cutter Itasca was stationed nearby to guide her in with radio signals and smoke plumes. The Electra was loaded with 1,100 gallons of fuel, enough for 20 hours of flight, with a slim margin for error. Navigation was the crux. Noonan relied on celestial navigation, using a sextant to plot their course by the stars. But heavy clouds could obscure the heavens, leaving them blind. Radio communication was their lifeline, but the Electra ES radio setup was a patchwork of 1930s technology, prone to static and limited in range. Earhart, more pilot than radio expert, had struggled with the equipment throughout the trip. To save weight, she and Noonan had stripped the plane of non-essentials, including a trailing antenna that might have boosted their signal. Coordination with the Itasca was shaky at best. Earhart's radio schedule was vague, and the frequencies they agreed on were a gamble in the vast Pacific. On July 2nd, at 10 a.m. local time, the Electra roared off Lae's dirt runway, its engines straining under the weight of fuel and ambition. Earhart and Noonan climbed into a sky thick with clouds, the Pacific stretching endlessly below like a blue void. For hours, they flew in silence, the drone of the engines their only companion. Noonan, hunched over his charts in the cramped rear cabin, scribbled calculations by lamplight, using the stars when they peeked through the clouds. Earhart, at the controls, scanned the horizon for Howland's faint outline, her eyes straining against the glare of sun and sea. The Itasca waited, its crew of sailors and radiomen led by Commander Warner Thompson, listening for any sign of the Electra. They sent Morse code signals and voice transmissions, burning oil to create a smoke trail visible for miles. But the airwaves crackled with static, and Earhart's voice remained elusive. At 2:45 a.m. Howland time, a faint signal broke through the Itasca's receivers. "We must be on you, but cannot see you. Gas is running low." Earhart's voice was steady but laced with urgency, a pilot confronting the limits of her fuel and patience. The Itasca crew sprang into action, sending stronger signals and pumping out more smoke, but their replies seemed to vanish into the ether. Earhart's radio was set to transmit on 3105 and 6210 kilocycles, but she wasn't hearing the Itasca's responses, possibly because of a misaligned frequency or her inexperience with the radio's quirks. At 6:14 a.m., another transmission. "We are circling but cannot see island, cannot hear you." The crew doubled their efforts, their voices hoarse from shouting into the radio, but the Electra's signals grew fainter, swallowed by distance and interference. By 7:42 a.m., Earhart's tone was desperate. "We are on the line, 157-337. We are running north and south." The line referred to a sun line, a navigational bearing Noonan likely calculated from the sun's position, running northwest to southeast. It was a clue, but maddeningly vague. Without a precise fix, it could stretch across hundreds of miles of ocean. The Itasca kept broadcasting, their smoke rising in thick black plumes against the dawn sky, but Earhart couldn't see it. At 8:43 a.m., her final transmission crackled through, faint and fractured. "We are on you, but we cannot see you." Then, silence. The Electra vanished, swallowed by the Pacific's vastness, leaving no wreckage, no oil slick, no trace. The U.S. government launched a massive search, one of the largest in naval history, covering 250,000 square miles of ocean. The Itasca scoured the waters around Howland, its crew battling rough seas and fading hope. Aircraft from the carrier Lexington swept nearby islands, while destroyers and battleships combed the deep. Gardner Island, now Nikumaroro, 400 miles south of Howland, drew attention after reports of distress signals, possibly Earhart's, possibly hoaxes, picked up by radio operators as far away as California. Navy planes buzzed Gardner's lagoon, but its dense jungle and coral reefs hid any secrets. After 2 weeks, with no sign of the Electra, the search was called off on July 18, 1937. Earhart and Noonan were declared lost at sea, their fate a question mark etched into the Pacific. The world reeled. Earhart was more than a pilot. She was a symbol of courage, a woman who'd flown higher than society thought possible. Noonan, less famous but no less vital, was mourned as a master navigator undone by chance. Theories multiplied like storm clouds. Had the Electra run out of fuel and crashed into the sea, sinking to the ocean floor? Had Earhart and Noonan landed on an island, surviving as castaways before succumbing to hunger or injury? Wilder tales emerged. Capture by the Japanese, who controlled nearby islands, or a secret mission for the U.S. government gone awry. None held up under scrutiny, but the lack of evidence fueled speculation. Clues trickled in over the years, each a tantalizing thread. In 1940, British settlers on Gardner Island found a partial skeleton, a woman's shoe, and a sextant box, items that might have belonged to Earhart or Noonan. But the bones were later lost, and the evidence inconclusive. Post-war searches turned up nothing definitive, though radio logs from 1937 suggested distress calls from Gardner, mentioning a New York City, possibly a garbled reference to the Electra's model. In recent decades, the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, TEGAR, has scoured Nikumaroro, finding artifacts like a jar of freckle cream Earhart might have used and signs of campfires on the reef. Sonar searches of the ocean floor near Howland have hunted for the Electra's wreckage, but the deep Pacific guards its secrets fiercely. The mystery endures because it is more than a missing plane. It is a story of human ambition pushing against the limits of technology and nature. Earhart's courage drove her to attempt what no one had, but the Pacific was an unforgiving adversary. Navigation errors, likely Noonan's miscalculation under cloud cover, could have sent them miles off course. Radio failures, compounded by Earhart's limited expertise, severed their lifeline to the Itasca. Fuel exhaustion was almost certain. 20 hours was their limit, and they'd been airborne for nearly that when the signal stopped. Whether they crashed at sea or landed on a coral atoll, surviving for days or weeks, the outcome was the same. 2 lives lost to the vastness. Amelia Earhart's final flight was a testament to her defiance, a woman who soared where others wouldn't dare. With Noonan, She chased a dream that outstripped the tools of her time, leaving behind a legacy written in the skies. Their disappearance is a riddle unsolved, a challenge to explorers and dreamers alike, daring us to search the waves and reefs for answers that may never come. The Pacific holds their story, a whisper of courage and loss carried on the wind. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in more historical true stories from our past, please like our video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell so you get notified of any future videos we release.